All right, guys, so welcome back. Personal Best Outdoors. I'm Chris. We are on the next step of the 11 factor arrow build. So I need to back up a little bit first. I kind of did something here that I've never actually personally done before, and I've been spending a lot of time kind of talking with Doc just to get the right kind of information and stuff. Really, really good guy. Like I said, I got to meet him at the first annual
Today, Junior!
Ashby Bow Hunting Foundation hog hunt in Texas here a couple months ago. But we exchanged information, and I've been able to kind of pick his brain because I want to do this project justice. And the guy is such a freaking genius with arrows and arrow tuning and the best setups and how to maximize lethality and stuff. He's a lot of it provided me with a lot of information of which I needed to take down quite a fair amount of notes. And I've been kind of wanting to, because I wanted to do this project justice, I've been kind of spending a lot of time with this next step kind of off camera. I will be filming this process, but I want to bring you guys up to where I'm at now. So you guys have seen me so far, building these broadheads with the inserts and building them onto the arrows. What you haven't seen me do is obviously these vanes that are on here, okay? Just to kind of show you for reference, this is what they started at. And if I line kind of, here, let me use a different color to show you exactly. I'll use the white. But if I line this vane up perfectly behind this green one, you can see the green one is obviously, much shorter than what it came at standard. So, here. It's also much shorter in regards to length as well. And the reason for that is because I've been talking with Doc to kind of figure out, how do we get as much FOC as possible? And, I've kind of I've seen one of his videos. I'll try to link it on here. I'll ask him for permission. I'm sure he won't have a problem with it. But he had a video where he was kind of doing like this convention and talking with people about FOC. And the way to achieve like UE FOC is not with adding weight on the front, but it's taking weight off of the rear. Obviously the less you could take, a grain off the back here, and it'll do more than adding, 10 or 15, 20 even grains up front for pushing that FOC number in the direction that we want it to go. And so a part of what his process was is, I'm not sure what he calls it. I call it vane tuning. That may be what he calls it. But this was my first time actually doing this. But what you do is you start with full length vanes. You have to wait for super, super windy days because obviously, this large broadhead on the front, people say isn't going to fly great. I'm here to tell you they fly fantastically as long as your bow has been tuned for this arrow. But that'll be a part for another video. But once you get this thing bare shafted and flying right, you wait for like a super windy day and you shoot full length vanes. And what you do is if it shoots great, you have to repeat it with multiple shots and all different kinds of wind, quartering to, quartering away, straight on, tailwind, side wind, all this kind of stuff. So you're constantly moving your target around. But what you're looking for as you shoot is instability. So if you're looking down the back of the arrow, what you're looking for is the back of the arrow to start doing all this kind of stuff while it's flying. And you keep cutting sections of vane off. And so I only did like 1/8 of an inch or so at a time. And obviously I would actually need to measure these. These start at 2.75 inches. So I would say I've probably gotten close to, between 3/4 of an inch to an inch of total length off there. And that's what it took in like 35, 40 mile an hour winds. We were kind of blessed here living along the coast with always kind of having some kind of wind. We're surrounded on like 3 sides by water, this landmass is. And so there's usually always wind. But what you do is you shoot those and you keep shooting them and you keep shooting them and you keep shooting them and constantly taking little bits of vane off at a time. So you do have to, strip your carbon and refletch until you finally start finding that first bit of instability. And then what you do is, I don't know if you can see this stripe on here, right? So this green stripe, that's a turbulator. And all this is pinstriping tape. You can see it's kind of coming off. I'm probably going to do like some clear nail polish or something on there to kind of hold that down in place. But what that does is your wind, as it's, as you're shooting, you've got wind currents that are kind of working laminarly along the carbon like this. It hits this little tiny raised edge, and what it does is it creates turbulence right here. And so it puts a lot more downward pressure on these vanes, and it'll clean up that arrow flight. And so I added the turbulator on there, and I shot them quite a few times. And, this process took multiple days. We had a pretty good windstorm, which generated a lot of work because, I own a tree service and stuff. And I'm here to tell you with 100% certainty that everything Doc told me about what would happen here and what I could experience, was exactly true and 100% correct. After putting that turbulator on there, I was able to get perfect arrow flight and wind, and I confirmed this out to like 60 yards, okay? Just to kind of speed up the video to kind of show you like, hey, you know, this arrow was nice and stable with all this vane length. Then we cut it down to here, and you can see it's not stable, but here we're shooting the exact same vane length, but we added a turbulator, and boom, it's right back to being perfectly stable. What this did for my FOC numbers, I kind of calculated this. So this arrow is like 27.5% FOC at 656.5 grains. I haven't weighed it exactly since I added the turbulator. That may have, you know, maybe taken, you know, maybe as much as 1/10 of a grain away from the FOC, and maybe added, I don't know, like maybe 1/10 of a grain of weight to the arrow. So probably like 265.7, you know, shooting at around 27.4% FOC. I'm here to tell you though that these things are like heat-seeking missiles if the target was heat generated. It's ridiculous. Out to 60 yards. Of course, you're always going to have a point of impact change, especially while, you know, shooting in wind that's blowing crossways, right? But this arrow, what happens is with having so much FOC at the front, wherever you point it, that's where the arrow wants to go. And so you'll have wind that kind of pushes the back end of this arrow. The front broadhead weight overwhelms it and it goes, nope. And it kind of keeps forcing the arrow to stay, the vanes to stay behind the broadhead. You do have point of impact shifts, but in my experience with shooting lighter setups, you know, at 65, 70 yards, whatever, just target shooting, maybe having as much of like, you know, 1.5 to 2 inches point of impact in a pretty heavy wind. I'm here to tell you that in that 35, 40 mile an hour wind, I maybe had like a 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch of impact change. That's me, okay? There could be a fair amount of that that's like user error. You know, I would say at 60 yards, you know, my margin of error, I'm pretty comfortable, you know, claiming that I can hold, you know, about a 4-inch group at 60 yards without much of an issue. In perfectly calm conditions. I did notice that that group kind of opened up, you know, a little bit more, but more of it was directed. In this case, the wind was pushing essentially to my right from my point of reference. My group, instead of being, you know, like that 4, 5-inch, whatever-ish group right there at 60 yards, you know, right with obviously the center of the target being, you know, where that group was surrounded, the entire group did kind of shift a little bit more to the right, probably about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, like I said. And a lot of that too could be as you're at full draw, you know, some of your bow is being pushed and stuff as well. So I've been really pleased with this result so far. And so now what we're going to do is, just because I was thinking ahead while I was doing this, and every time that I would cut a vane down before I glued it, I would trace it out kind of on a piece of paper. And so I had this template here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get you guys set up, and we're basically going to lay these vanes on top of it. I can see the line faintly through it. I'm going to mark these vanes with the black fine point Sharpie. We'll cut them and we'll get to fletching them up. And yeah, we'll just kind of show you that next step. So let me get the camera set up for that. Stay tuned and we'll get it cracking. All right, so here we go. These are Tech Driver 2.75s. This is going to be kind of boring. I don't even know if you guys will be able to see the line through the vane. Kind of, you can kind of make it out there. So what I'm going to do is, just like I said, kind of line this up here with the borders, and we're going to go ahead and draw that line across and move it off to the side. You'll be able to see, I can see it with the green and also the orange as well. It doesn't have to be like super ridiculously critical that you get this exactly the same. At least it's been my experience that all of these are super close in weight, so all these built arrows. But having that little bit of variance is fine, just because you can kind of play with the vanes to kind of make them match even better. And that's especially true with the lighted nocks that I use. So they're all around like between 14.4 and like 15.1 grains. The advertised weight on them is 15 grains, so not really a super huge deal, but you know, kind of having that little bit of variance does definitely make it substantially easier to kind of get your final arrow weights to match completely. So you just kind of play with, you know, like the heavier components that you still have to add to the arrow, add those to the lighter arrows that you have built thus far. And, you know, my experience is by the time everything is said and done, they're all going to be, you know, within, I'm happy with like 1.5 grains between my heaviest and my lightest arrows. But these Ranch Fairy broadhead arrows that I made, they all ended up being, I think the lightest and the heaviest was like 0.2 grains. Just so you guys know, those are all right here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll weigh those out, but you can see these all have the Ranch Fairy heads on them, and they all have the turbulators and the vanes and the lighted nocks. So maybe just to show you guys, I'll weigh all those out. All right, so gonna be kind of hard to see because the field of view is so small on the camera, that being this close. But basically all I do is I just take a nice sharp X-Acto knife, and I'm gonna kind of just follow. You don't have to push super hard if the knife is sharp, but I'm just gonna kind of follow that line. And what you'll notice is like the vein starts to bend out and away from you. You see how it's kind of flexing out there? That works perfect, because it'll kind of help give you like that swooping appearance to it. Let me turn this around so you can't see the Sharpie. So you can kind of see it kind of swoops. That's ultimately what we're going to be after anyway. And so you just kind of rinse, wash, repeat, because I do a 3 fletch configuration. When we're doing 6 arrows, there's going to be a total of 18 of these that I have to cut. I don't think you want to watch me cut all of them. So I will probably cut this one and get back to you when we are ready to fletch them up. All right, so the next thing you'll notice where we made these cuts at, you see how these kind of little sections kind of swoop out, and then on the back side too, just for molding them, I go ahead and cut those back. I mean, it's not really saving a whole lot of weight, but any little bit that we can take off is, you know, just only going to help the FOC. And it's just kind of been my experience that those little sections here, you can see now I've cut them off. Those little sections, they don't really like get glued onto the carbon anyway. And so, you know, on shooting stuff through, I mean, you will, you know, have those soft spots in your target. It'll kind of like allow something to grab onto, and it kind of helps rip your veins off. I've just noticed since I've done that, I haven't had, you know, veins fall off nearly as much. So it's just a little something I do, just a little helpful hint. All right, so we're now at that point where we need to start weighing out our components. So I'm gonna use this same black Sharpie. You'll see on these broadheads, right, like I've got a weight there. That was just the broadhead and the insert. And then you'll also see that I put weights on the carbon shafts themselves. That was the carbon after I cut them. So what I do now is I'm just going to go ahead and weigh these guys, and we're going to get a weight. So the broadhead plus the carbon with the insert and impact collar is 629.5 on this guy. I always give it a second to kind of center itself out. So we're going to write 629.5. And we're going to set that off to the side, and we're going to do the next one. And give it a second, because sometimes it will change. All right, 6299. 629.9. And see if it'll change. See, there it just went. All right, 6299. You guys are kind of seeing these things are all like so close to the same weight already. You know, this is kind of what happens when you weigh out your components and you try to match things out. Also using good quality components definitely makes it easy too. So 6298. That one was a little lighter than these two, so we'll move that there. Kind of put them in hierarchy from, I guess, like lightest to heaviest. And then when we weigh out our nocks, we're going to put the heavier nocks with the lighter shafts and vice versa. And then do the same thing with the vanes. 629.9. So I've got 3 of them there that are 629.9, one is 629.8, and one is 629.5. Give it a second. Okay, looks like this one's going to stay 629.8. Awesome. Now we start weighing out lighted nocks. Get you set up for that. There was once a point in time where I had all these segregated, or I guess you can't see them. Hold on. There they are. And then I bumped them. So there's a piece of paper here off camera. Now they're all messed up, so we get to do it again. I'm going to take this off here and we're going to tear that out. Oops, I pushed the power button. Little helpful hint, try to keep them all kind of in the same spot on the scale. These scales are generally pretty good, but there are scales where putting them kind of on the edge will manipulate your weight a little bit. So I know this isn't going to be the lightest of the light, so we'll do this. We'll go 14.4, 14.5, 14.6, 14.7, 14.8. And we'll set this guy in. And we'll go to the next one. Like I said, this is not going to be super fun and interesting stuff. I'll probably just go ahead and get these weighed out, and I'll get back to you guys when I'm done. Kind of make this video quicker and easier to edit. Alright, so got them all weighed out. I got 14.4, 14.5, 14.7, 14.8. That seems to be the most common ranges of these things, between like 14.4 and 14.8. However, I did have one that's pretty light at 14.2 and one that's a little heavier than normal at 15 even, which actually works out because this arrowhead right here, okay, we had 629.5. So if we add something that, you know, is slightly heavier to that, it's going to kind of help bring that down. So that one will probably go on here, and then I'm going to play with these weights and stuff. This one's 629.8 and these are all 629.9. So kind of trying to pick one, like I would say like this 0.4 would probably go there. One of these 0.5s would probably go here. It'd probably be what I would do. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a thing, and we'll see where all these weights end up being at for these arrows. Alright, so now we got the lighted nocks put in there. This one I wrote sharpen on just because it's the one I was practicing with that was originally fletched up, but you can see I've taken those off. We got to get a weight on these. Now they have the nocks in there, and I'll write them on the broadhead, so then that way when we start matching them with the vanes, we know exactly how much weight we need to put to try to get these to be as even as possible. So this one is sitting at 644.5. So we'll write that on here. 644.5. And 644.1. I have a feeling that all of these are going to be 644.1 now. That first one we weighed was the one where the carbon was a little lighter than the rest. It was like 629.5, and I added the 15 grain one. These ones all got 14 point something. So they're all going to be really, really close to each other. Okay, so 644.3. Okay, 644.3. Maybe they're all going to be closer to 644.3. Maybe I did my math wrong in my head. Either way, all these vanes are not going to be the exact same weight, so they will help us to make these finished arrows all pretty darn close, if not the same. And one more. Okay, 644.1. Awesome. Start weighing up vanes, and I'll get paper set up and be back with you. All right, let's go ahead and weigh out some vanes. Tear this out. Okay, keeps changing. Got a little bit of wind circling through here. All right, 3.2. $3.7. 3.5. I'm gonna go ahead and get these weighed out and be back with you when it's time to fletch. All right, so as you guys can see, I've got each set of vanes set up with each corresponding head. Kind of played with them, threw them on the scale and stuff as a package to kind of get the right breakup as far as, like, these guys are a little heavier, 644.3. So these packs are going to be a little bit lighter. These ones are going to be kind of in the middle. And then I had one head that was 644.5, you know, that was heavier. So the packs of vanes there are a little lighter. So let's get you set up. We'll get one of these guys fletched up and show you guys that process. All right, so I had to play with this a little bit to try to figure out the best view for you guys, but I like using the Vane Master Pro. Some of the things I really like about this thing is, you know, you can do really kind of any fletch. Like I said, not sponsored by anybody or anything, so I paid for this with my own money. But here you can kind of see these marks and stuff in here. So you can do left or right helical, you know, 0 to 5 degrees. And then these wires, okay, you kind of twist them around until you get the right perfect contact along the shaft. It is a little bit difficult to set up at first, but once you get it, one of the more repeatable fletching jigs that I've had any experience with. You can also get the 4 fletch knob. I'm using the 3 fletch. I do have the 4 fletch knob. I just don't really run 4 fletch. And the thing that's really cool about it here is for making it super repeatable, they've got this spot where you can kind of index how far back on your shaft do you want your vanes to start going. You can also index, you know, where you want your index vane to be by pulling this back part off. There's kind of like some indents and stuff. Maybe I'll show you guys that in a later video, but I don't really want to like spend a whole lot of time talking about it and stuff right now. I just kind of want to get this kind of ball rolling. So what I've gone ahead and done, you'll notice there's no more marks or anything on these aside from just the arrow rate that I wrote up here at the broadhead, but I went ahead and cleaned off the carbon. You know, you want to not touch this, okay? And then all of my indexing marks are going to be right there. So you'll see them. That's going to be the side basically that we start putting on here first, to just kind of, you know, get these fletched up. But what you kind of do is you kind of load this guy in here like this, and I barely have enough room here. Kind of slide it down till it'll kind of click there like that. And then you've got this part here with like this bungee cord on it. It just kind of makes sure that you're putting plenty of back pressure back into the nock and stuff here so these don't slide for you. And then I always do my orange vane is up top, so you'll take this off and you'll see here I kind of have, it doesn't really come out so well on camera, but there's a little black mark that's underneath like these Teflon coatings, okay? And that's kind of where I line my vanes up to. So we'll just kind of slide it back to about there. That's pretty much where I want it at. And then I'm going to put some of the primer pen here because these tack vanes, people do have problems with them shooting off. Whenever you use like the tack glue, no matter what brand it is that you're using, if you're buying vanes, I recommend using that manufacturer's glue. Some of them are more expensive than others, but it pays just to kind of know your stuff's not going to come off. And you're just going to kind of run a little bit across here. It dries really, really quickly, and all this does is it kind of prepares the surface for your cyanoacrylate, aka super glue. And with these tack vanes, I've learned, and it may just be because of this fletching jig, but instead of doing like the little dot here and the little dot there, so some people put like a dot here and a dot here and a dot here or whatever, I actually kind of just run a bead down there. I'm not sure if it's because of the jig itself or the vanes. I think I'm going to have to clean out my super glue tip. Hold on. Yep, my tip is completely plugged. So let me clean this out and I'll get back with you. All right, so I got that cleaned out. And now all I'm going to do, this is going to be really, really hard to do around the camera. I may only fletch up one of these, but you'll kind of see, because the tube's clear, I can see that the glue's kind of rolling, okay? And what I'm going to do is, as soon as it starts getting ready to stick out there we go. I'm going to just kind of run a bead down the entire middle of it. And I'll show you why I do this. It may just be these tack vanes. It may be the jig. Whenever I fletched up the boning, maybe it's the vanes, but whenever I used to use like the Blazer heat vanes and stuff, I didn't have to run like a whole kind of a narrow bead. I would just kind of put a few dabs and then work it around. But now that I've run that bead, I am going to kind of spread it. Okay, make sure I'm still going to be indexed, and it looks like I am with that black mark. Okay. And then all we're going to do is slide it on the track and bump the camera. We're going to slide up against there, and then I do like, you know, a fair amount of pressure for like 20, 25, maybe 30 seconds. The reason for that I'll show you afterwards, but I have had problems with these vanes shooting off if I don't give them a little bit of pressure. And I think the reason for that, and I can actually kind of show you, I can do this one-handed. But if you look at these vanes, okay, so this part here is kind of like a groove where you put the glue. There it is. You can see how deep it is. I think if they kind of manufactured these so it was like a little more flat, it would allow these wires to press on it a little better. And I think you'd get more contact, basically. Better surface area contact and stuff on these vanes. I think you'd be less likely to have to shoot them off, or less likely to shoot them off, I should say. But once we've got that held, basically just going to push back on this here, and we're going to rotate to the next one. And if you look, let me take you off here. This has been the big problem that I've had with these. You can kind of see there's like void there for the glue. You know, we've got it at the front and the back, so it's going to hold. But that's why I don't do the little dabs on there with these vanes. I'll actually run a full bead. It just definitely helps them to stick on there better. So the back side of this, you can't see it, but the back side of this one's completely solid. What I've done with some success is I'll grab one of these guys here, these picks. It's got kind of like this flat side, and I'll just kind of push down on that spot of the vein that has the void, because there is glue there, right? And it'll kind of help it contact. There we go. And less likely to shoot off. Like I said, don't know how critical it is. There's plenty of super glue on there. They're definitely not going to go flying off. It's just been something I've learned that helps me. And so after my orange ones, I go with the white and slide it down to that mark. Okay, like so. And then we'll use this primer pen. Oops, that's right. Do it on camera so you guys can see. And apply some primer pen on there. My vein slid, so I'll slide it back down. Okay, here we go. And back to the glue. Really, really difficult to do on camera. I think I'm figuring it out though. And we got the bead started. And just like you've heard me say countless times during this process, like, don't be in a hurry for any of this. Take your time. It's going to take plenty of time. You know, everybody has a life to live, right? And if you've got other things like going on, or you've got like an appointment or family stuff or work stuff or whatever, don't feel like you need to be in a rush. This stuff isn't going anywhere. You can always come back to it. It's worth it to take your time. What I generally like doing when I'm fletching these up is just kind of sitting out there in the living room. Sorry, I wasn't doing this on camera. All I was doing was kind of spreading this back and forth. But I like going out there while we got like a show going on or something, sit in my chair and kind of fletch these up. Something that's, you know, when you're kind of already in low gear anyway, don't really have a lot going on, that's like the best time to do this kind of stuff. You know, enjoy a beer or whatever you got going on with it. Definitely makes things much more enjoyable. So we're going to go ahead and hold this for probably about another 15 or 20 seconds, and then we will do the green one, and that'll be one arrow complete. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. Nice. Looks like we got good adhesion on both sides of that. So onto the green one. Line it up with that mark. You can also too, like on these Teflon wires, you can make a mark where you want your veins to go back to. Oh yeah, camera, sorry. Just applying the primer pen. And applying super glue. I don't think I really cleaned this out that great because, man, it should be coming out a lot quicker than this. Really kind of squeezing it kind of hard. Which tells me there's still like a super glue core kind of stuck inside of the tube there. The applicator tip. And then, yeah, we're just going to spread this. Okay, like so. Make sure we're still lined up with our black mark, and we are. Oops, don't drop it. And about a good 25-30 second hold. I kind of enjoy doing stuff like this, fletching these arrows up and whatnot. I've done a few buddies' arrows. To me, it's kind of like meditative. It allows me to kind of have something to work on with my hands and focus on. And the quality of everything when it's all said and done, you get to like take a step back and you look at it and you're like, wow, I did a really good job on that. And then when you put it through an animal later on, and from like start to finish, so with like bow tuning, arrow building, putting in the hours and stuff to kind of, help yourself be successful. And then, like all the time that you spend kind of scouting or looking for game. And then when you finally capitalize on it, it just, it's like the ultimate prize at the end. So now what we'll do, you guys probably can't see this, but we're going to take the bungee off, rotate this back to the start position, and we'll take the arrow off. And just like that, fletched up. On to the next one. I'm going to go ahead and get these handled, and then I'll be back with you guys when we're getting ready to add the turbulator. Alright, so we went ahead and I'll just show you one of these guys, right? Got these all nice and fletched up, right? Looking good. There's the tough heads. The next step is putting the turbulator on. So I want to show you guys that process. Some stuff that you'll need. Okay, obviously your arrows ready to add turbulators. I'm just going to add these to the stack here. 1/16, you can use 1/32 fine line. It's basically pinstriping tape. I've got it in a few different colors. I've got green here. I've also got white, and I've also got black. It's been my experience that this K-tape brand, that it generally sticks pretty well, so I've been using it. Plus, it's the color I wanted to stick with the most. You're going to need some quick epoxy. This is one of the very few rare times that you'll see me doing this. I'll show you what this is for. And then like a small dish, don't care about. I generally just make one out of foil, for mixing up the epoxy with a little bit of acetone. And then you're going to need an X-Acto blade for cutting the tape. Now, you can do the part where we measure things out with a tape measure. However, I like to use my dial calipers here. And so you want to be 1/4 inch, okay, in front of the vanes. So we're going to roll out to 0.250, which is going to be 1/4 of an inch, just about there. That's pretty close. If you're a little bit above or below, it's not really going to matter. Just to save grace from internet people running their mouths and stuff, we'll just go ahead and try to get that as close as we can. I'm going to go ahead and get that set up. I'm not really going to worry, but there you go. About it too much. And then you're going to need a Sharpie to kind of mark the spot on these. So I'm going to go ahead and use this gold Sharpie. But all we're going to do here is, first and foremost, we're going to come down from our vanes here, and we're going to mark that at the 250. Like I said, it doesn't have to be like super point on or anything, so I just kind of do this, kind of make a little bit of a mark there. I'm going to go ahead and get all these marked up, and we'll get on to the next step. Alright, so now that we got these marked up, right, I'm just going to show you. They all got that little gold mark on them. We're just going to have to take my word for it. We're going to go ahead and open up the package of tape, and I generally just kind of bend a little piece of this over because it's kind of a pain in the butt to find the end. And what I like doing is taking off maybe like a 6 or so inch strip here, and we're going to go ahead and use our X-Acto knife and just cut that off and set that out of the way for now. Don't forget with this tape, just because it is really narrow, it's pretty easy to lose where the end is at. Just bend a piece over like so, stick her back in the package. Going to be a little bit difficult for me to do because generally I kind of orient the arrows, so I'm going to pretend like you guys are me like this. However, I'm literally on this side of the camera, so I'm going to have to kind of turn things like this a little bit. I'm going to try to keep things in frame as best as I can, but I'm basically going to stick the tape on here and I'm going to kind of roll it around. You do want your line to be pretty straight. I'm probably going to mess this up just because things are like backwards from the way I typically do this, trying to work on the camera. But you'll kind of get it started kind of like that. Don't pull this stuff super tight, and I'm going to show you why. Because if you like pull really tight, like tug on this, you'll kind of get some separation where the ends kind of terminate together. So we're going to try and keep this as straight as possible This is super difficult trying to keep it in view for you guys and still kind of focus on what I'm doing here. I'm going to be surprised if these lined up. Oh my goodness, they did. All right, perfect. And you can't really tell. Maybe if I pull this out of the way, you can see how I've kind of come full circle there. But I generally just kind of run my thumbnail along it till I feel that ridge. It's right here. And I'll kind of push in on that a little bit so it kind of creases it. You can kind of see that on camera. And then go ahead and take this X-Acto knife here and hold the tail end, right, kind of tight. And go ahead and make your cut. It's going to kind of pull that out of the way a little bit, not really a big deal. You can see it's not super perfect anymore. And then use the back side of your blade and kind of push it back where you need to go. And just like that. That's pretty much what we're after. I kind of will spin it a little bit. That one actually looks pretty straight. It looks like maybe it's a little bit back here. Not really super critical. I'm just kind of like OCD and anal about stuff like this, so I want it to be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and get those wrapped up, and I'll be back with you guys for the next step. Alright, so as you can see, we got the 6 of these guys set up. We're ready for the next step. So we got the turbulators put on there, and now just because those, they have a little bit of an adhesive on there, you will shoot them off. You're going to use your little tin foil dish here, and then I like taking from some Q-tips, taking like the fluff off of one of the ends, okay? These things are cheap, and I think I bought like that box of 500 or 1,000 or whatever's in there. I think it maybe cost me like $4 or $5, so it's a lifetime supply of them. I like mixing up a little bit of a sealer using some epoxy and some acetone. Now you can use like clear nail polish remover or like a lacquer that you can paint on there. So use whatever's handy to you. This is just what I like doing. Obviously I don't paint my nails and stuff, and lacquer is like kind of made for wood. I've heard you can use it just fine on carbon, but I have no experience with it. So when you take this off, right, you can kind of see like this side's a little yellow, this side's a little clear. So make sure when you put them back in there, the yellow side goes with the yellow side, because if you flip those around, you've heard me say it before with the JB Weld, they will kind of harden in here. So the way that you kind of mix this up, right, we're going to give it like a nice even squirt. And this is one of like the very few times that you'll ever see me use like a quick setting epoxy. I want this to set up pretty quick, just because, it's not really like super critical. I like having for like building the arrows like a slower setting, kind of an epoxy or JB Weld. And so the first part of this, right, we're going to mix these two parts together. This is important, okay? If you just go ahead and straight in with the acetone and then try mixing it up, for some reason it doesn't quite work out as well. I think it's because of like the consistency of the epoxy. You're trying to mix it in with the acetone, and it just doesn't work out so well, at least in my previous experience. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this paper towel and I'm going to fold it down, because I'm going to kind of use it like a mop to soak up some of the acetone and squirt it in there by wringing this out. I should probably get one of them small dishes that has like that little, pump mechanism. I'm sure it would make this a lot easier, but this seems to work out just fine. And I have this left over from when I painted the grill on my truck. So may as well just use this stuff. So you can kind of see I've got like one side of this pretty wet. Find a corner of it and just kind of dribble a little bit in there. You want to do this a little bit at a time, okay? Don't go crazy with just getting the acetone in there, because it will, it's pretty easy to overdo it and make it too thin, and then you have a really difficult time kind of mixing stuff up. So I probably am going to want to use just a little bit more in there. And mix this up. That seems like it's going to be about right. So you kind of want it, you can't really tell in there, but you can kind of see it. I can kind of moving from one side to the other. You want it to be like the consistency of, I guess, like a really kind of a thin paint or something. That seems like it'll probably work out all right. Maybe I'll just put just a smidge more of acetone in there. I think we got just enough in there that time. Yep, that's perfect. You don't really want to feel like a whole lot of resistance in this when you're kind of moving it through there. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm just going to wrap this up in there because I don't need it to stick itself to anything. Don't forget to put the lid back on your acetone. Dumping it on your hardwood floors is not a good idea. Ask me how I know. So now we're going to kind of, this part's pretty simple. I like to kind of tighten up the cube tip here a little bit. And we're going to kind of put a little dab of that stuff on there. You can kind of see it on the end, okay? And what we're going to do is not brush it on, but kind of spin the arrow and just kind of dab this. And it doesn't really take a whole lot. See there, I got too much, which is fine because the next step is going to kind of clean that up for us. Okay, just like that. I'm going to set that out of the way. I'm running out of desk space. I'm trying to get ready for, I'm going scouting for elk this weekend. So I've got crap kind of all over my office, but I wanted to hurry up and get this part of it filmed so I know I have something to work on. I'm going to share that video of my scouting trip with you guys. Kind of show you some stuff to look for, just in case some people are, you know, new to like trying to put your own hunt together. So you'll kind of see it's kind of got like a little bit of a raised kind of a dome or bubble appearance to it. That's fine for now. I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. So turbulators, while I'm kind of putting this on here, you know, there's people that use them. Doc kind of, you know, when I got to hang out with him for that first annual Ashby bow hunting hog hunt, he kind of spent a little time talking with him about like his arrow building process. And I've also watched quite a few of his conventions that he was doing, talking about, you know, arrow efficiency and like stuff. And you know, the guy's just a wealth of information. And you know, when I started talking to him about, hey, I want to build, you know, like something pretty close to your 12 factor arrow, and you know, kind of started picking his brain about it, and I've talked with him about it quite a few times on the phone. We exchanged information. He's taken all of my calls every time I've ever called him, which kind of says a lot because the dude's kind of like, you know, rock star status in the bow hunting community, but he's like one of the most humble people I've ever met, and that's kind of what cracks me up about like this, you know, great arrow debate thing that everybody's currently wrapped up in. I mean, the dude has the ability, just from his experience alone, to kind of like, you know, tell people, hey, here's the deal, you know, you should listen to me, I know what I'm talking about. But he's never going to like force that on anybody. And the funny thing about it is, you know, he's just so ridiculously humble. I mean, he doesn't care what you shoot, okay? If you want to shoot, you know, a 350 grain arrow, that's fine. It doesn't affect him. It really doesn't bother me either. You know, I care about our natural resources, and you know, if there's a way to kind of, you know, make it so I can have, you know, like an easier time killing these things, put them down quicker, and share that with you guys. That's kind of ultimately what I'm after, is kind of protecting our natural resource. So I think a lot of it is attributed to, you know, like the wound loss ratios and stuff. People, for one, taking shots that they shouldn't take, or not being fully proficient with their equipment or practicing the way that they should be. But I also think, too, if we were using a slightly more efficient system, I think more people would have more success. Anyway, so now we're going back to the first one that we had here, and we're just going to kind of, now we're going to brush, okay? And you want to be careful there. You saw what happened. But as you kind of get to where those two ends meet up, you don't want to like pull that up. But we're just going to kind of brush off some of that excess, kind of work it around the carbon a little bit. There we go. Perfect. There you have it. So yeah, all 6 of those. Let me go ahead and throw this away real quick. Go ahead and show you guys. There we go. All 6 of them ready to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Set up, ready to go. These things are ready to shoot. We'll get you set up for my final thought. Hey, so it just dawned on me, I never got a final total arrow weight on these guys for you, but if we look, I've got 6 here built with the Ranch Fairy heads. Okay, those are 200 grains. I put the bleeders on them, Ethics archery inserts, and then these obviously are the Tough Heads 225. Had to play with the point weights and stuff to get them exactly the same, but I'm going to go ahead and set these up and weigh them all out for you guys. I've already weighed them. It just dawned on me I didn't show you guys, but I was sitting there telling you about how if you take your time, weigh out your components, you can get an arrow with tighter tolerances than probably what you'll be able to shoot. So let's just go ahead and do that now. My lightest arrow, give it a second, there we go, 656.3 grains. Next, excuse me, that back end was touching. 656.6. So we've got a spread of 3/10 of a grain right now. Here's the third Ranch Fairy. Still too far back. I got some serious FOC on them. 656.6. That's arrow number 3. Here comes arrow number 4. 656.5. I had this written down as 0.6, but that's all right. Still only got a spread of 3/10 of a grain. Arrow number 5. 656.6 grains. And the final Ranch Fairy one. This one I had written down as 656.8. Give it a second. Maybe the scale is a little bit weird. So there may be a couple grains worth of variance there, but I did have this written down on the back here as 656.8. Kind of focus there. There we go. Anyway, that's even better, I guess. Scale can be off a grain or two, but now we'll get on to the Tough Heads. Tough Head number 1. This was my lightest one. I had 656.3 written on it. That's what it shows on the scale. This one I had written down at 656.5. There we go. Still got a variance of 3 grains, even though my last Ranch Fairy one, the first time I weighed it was 656.8. So we'll just call it a half grain's worth of variance. Tough Head number 3. 656.5 is what I wrote. It's coming out 0.3 on the second weight. This one I wrote down 656.6. Let's see what it says. Yep, 656.6 or 0.5. Let's call her half a grain's worth of variance. This one I'd written down 656.8. There it goes. 656.8. So now we legitimately on camera have half a grain's worth of variance. Our lightest was 656.3 and our heaviest has been 656.8. And 656.8. So there you have it. A total of 12 arrows completely built, half a grain's worth of variance. So get you set up now for my final thoughts.